Now the bottom of the walk cycle has been embedded with two legs that are walking through, and these different patterns have been built in between the legs to allow these are the actual walking steps, the yellow, the black, the yellow, the black, to allow the sense that the background is moving in the opposite direction of the direction of the person walking, or the character walking, I should say. So this of course is the top. This is the torso and the arms, and let's put that back. So the biggest idea about continuing this pattern is to take, for example, this green stripe, or this green and red and pink striped material, run it through the arm here and maybe the arm on the back side, and have it come out here where you can see the other side of that material is. So that would be a keystone event in the middle of it. So I'm going to go ahead and try to run a piece of this pattern going through these two arms. This is now today's step. I'm going to use a, rather than using this large block, I'm going to use a piece of lesser material. That's already been somewhat cut up. The difficulty here will be finding a way of embedding it so it still feels like it's going crossways. So I kind of want this material to lay in with a kind of direction. This accomplishes that the best, so I'll carve around this little piece, maybe carve a little bit more, and then try to form fit the rest so it wants to drop in snugly to the actually I'm going to actually cut it this way because it really has to have this directional, flow. I know that may not make sense when you first hear me try to describe that, and I'm not doing a great job of it. I'm doing it too fast. But you want the clay to be moving. The pattern, generally, I'm just trying to make it move at a sort of angle this direction, where the flow of this this material has a directional impetus. So we remove that a little bit, it opens up a little room. This is the keystone pattern. I'm going to build a lot of patterns around it. There's not a lot of room to work with in here because I'm not completely opening this whole thing up. Whatever, I will. Look at that. I'll open it all the way up and try to, this is just smudge land. This won't do much. Alright, at least it'll form fit back now into the into its place. If I were to really do this right, I probably would have a different pattern, a half and half pattern going on, but I'm not going to. What I'm trying to do is get this to tuck in here and this to tuck in here, and that generally will get the point across. So I'm going to work now from the top down and try to carve and then push a little shape into this section without distorting the actual arms motion too much back there. I'm going to go ahead and now work on the other side, trying to get this to flow. Let's see. Trying to get it to flow into at an angle into this odd plane of arm swinging. Okay. So now I have to find a way of patching on the back side. I want to sort of figure out the best way to patch these materials. Sometimes it's best just to fudge. I'm going to fudge right there. That's fudge. Sometimes it's best to try to find a similar pattern with a similar stripe moving through it, which is what I'm trying to do here. This is always harder. That certainly gets the directional flow correct. So I'm trying to create a little wedge. There it goes. Bix. That will allow this to tuck itself. Okay. So this now is generally flat and can find its way back onto this larger piece. That's correct. This thing doesn't line up exactly, so I'm going to lower it just a little bit. So what I mean is that the level of these have to go down just a little bit in order to make contact with the original pattern, which is actually doing pretty well. Okay. Now I have the arms swinging. Of course, these pieces have fallen off. There's one, and there's the other. So you can see the torso. I think this torso isn't lined up so well. Let's do that. Okay. This is now going this direction on the walk, but the key here is you can see that this flow of clay goes from one side to the other, and it mirrors the flow down here. I'm going to go ahead and fill in all the rest. Probably less. I don't need to have as much density of pattern up here. All I'm trying to do is support. I'm going to try to support this sort of like a tree triangle up this direction. So I'll put smaller amounts of clay on the side like this. I won't have this be as thick, or if I do, it'll be the only piece on the upper torso that is as tall, because I don't need that. It's clay is very heavy, it's very weighty, and you build up from the bottom trying to support whatever it is you're trying to hold at the top, and since all I need to hold is now the head, I don't need to do a lot more other than to wedge this with a few pieces on either side to hold the whole torso up, because the base is so heavy and sturdy. The torso just needs a little bit, it doesn't need this much, and then the head just needs a tiny little bit. To the I want to talk a little bit about the head. The head will be, it's a very, what I'm going to do is cut a wedge shape out of this shape. This is, of course, supposed to be the profile of a person at the top. The eye goes here, and the mouth goes there. I think the first thing I want to do is emphasize the mouth and the head. So I'm going to cut a little line in the mouth to allow sorry about the rattling paper, to allow a little line of black clay is what I'm planning to put inside this mouth, and a little roll, tiny roll of dot black clay for the eye. This will help define the features. This is again very crude, but that's at this scale. I'm not trying to make it super detailed. I'd have to spend a lot more time, and it would be very fine, small work. This is still sort of medium scale work. So I'm going to take a sheet of black that I've run through the pasta grinder to make it very skinny and even, and this is going to define the smiling mouth, which I want to probably wedge open just a little bit more. Great. Okay. Just trying to tuck it in there. It's not like I have to do a lot with it. It just has to define you're trying to make a cartoon in the brain of the person watching it, and it has to just define in the crudest childlike sense, the smile or the bottom lip, the separation, I should say, between the bottom lip and the jaw. So it's not that deep all the way through. It's just the deepest part. This gives you an idea what it looks like. It helps the brain put it all together, saying, oh, that's a profile, that's a person, that's their mouth, that's their eye. I'm going to trim a little bit of this off because I think it doesn't help to have it smoosh over the chin or up onto the nose. Take the smallest piece of this, roll it out. This will become the eyeball. It doesn't have to have much, just tiny dot, ultimately, of definition. Gives it enough to lay in right above the nose and let the viewer know that that's actually the eye of the person walking. Next, I'm going to have to put some hair on this character. So I'm going to cut this way and this way to open up and get rid of all this extra clay. Ideally, really, I should have molded it this way. I was sort of lazy when I made the pour mold for this head, and I probably should have sat and said, all right, this is exactly how much of the head I want to show, because I'm going to have to put hair in each time. I wasn't sure that I'd have, I guess this allows me the option to create a bald person and some other things and not actually deal with the hair. It still reads, and that's why I did it that way, because it's the fastest, simplest shape. But now this carving allows me to deal with the hair. I'm going to have to bring a little bit of blue back in to make the ear. The ear will be, this is the negative space in which the hair will exist, and the ear will be a tiny roll of, shouldn't be very big, it just needs to be a little circle. So ultimately that's about where the ear will go, although not exactly. But that's the plan, so you can see where I'm headed. I need to find the right kind of hair texture. it's always a bit of a mystery how or why I choose certain patterns sometimes. I'm going to choose this. This is an incredibly psychedelic block, and perhaps I'm trying that just to prove that the form of the walk can function even with all the activity going on around it. You can still understand as a person walking. There's still a gestalt or a pattern in the mind of the viewer that understands exactly what is happening in the content or the narrative of the clay, the time sculpt. Okay, I'm going to cut this in thirds. This is going to be the moving. I'm making the hair as psychedelic and active as the rest of it, rest of the character, or what's around the character, I should say, with the colors that have been filled around the character. And then I'm squaring it off. That means taking the pattern, cutting on one side, putting the triangle with a 45-degree wedge on the other side. This is basically going to lay in there. Far too large, so don't worry, that's not, you know, exactly what's going on. First I need to firm up this block a little bit. It's going to be a little hard to work with unless I spend a moment to get it to make it a little more solid. So a lot of this is just compression to make it less crazy, and press it together so it has a little bit of it doesn't want to fall apart as quickly. Okay, that roughly fits the gap of the head. I'm going to go in and cut this now, negative cut this. But I'm taking out a giant chunk that's going to go where the ear, this is where the ear and the sideburns and whatnot are going to go, and then it goes over the top of the head. So this section gets carved out. I'm going to push this back, allow the ear to be laid in, and then I'm going to try to deal with the sideburns next. Actually, I don't know if that's such a good idea. I think I want to scoop this out just a tiny bit more. I'm going to carve. After I've taken the bigger chunk, I'm going to come in and take even just a little smaller chunk out of this. Okay, this creates a little space for the ear to live. Okay. And the ear is going to want, the last thing I'm going to do is put a little sideburns in. And that's any piece of the texture that makes the most sense. The problem is that the pattern will start to be conflicting. If you want the pattern to go with the rest of the pattern, I'd actually really want to lay it in like that. So the flow of the whole head is identical. I'm going to go ahead and try to do it right. Sometimes you can just lay it in crisscross, and that's as fun as anything. So here I've tried to match the pattern that I just extracted. This will be the hair that goes on the sideburn, if you will. Alright. in fitting this now to the head, you can see roughly where it has to go. So I'm going to bring the forehead back. This is the ear, this is the head, the hair. It's a sort of crew cut. Good morning. And okay. Perhaps the forehead is a little bald, so maybe I'll add a little more hair up there. Here I'm going to try to match it to the pattern. See, the line goes this way, so I'm going to try to make the line go that way, even though it won't be identical. It'll still have the same flow, and it will cover the top of the head in a way that you know, actually it's kind of, now that I've done that, I think that's kind of fun. You can make a little hair lick coming off the top. I'm going to enhance that. I'm going to go through and make that a feature rather than a bug. This last bit of sort of Bob's Big Boy hair coming up. Okay, so that basically is the head. It goes on top of the body, and it fits right there. In order to get it to cement back to the to cement itself back to the rest of the body, I'm going to go in and add a little strip of blue along it, probably very thin, or even better, I may. This is it. I need to cut this up and open. I'm opening up the neck, so there's an open two flaps that allow this to sit on top of the neck. Let's go this way. And so that allows it to be pressed down. And then I'm going to want to use pressure in my fingers to sort of smear these two pieces of clay together, to sort of swipe down with my thumb all the way along it to make sure that it's actually glued and sticking. And then I'm going to add additional clay in and around some of these pieces, and maybe even an additional stripe along the neck to make sure it's cemented. And this will finally be the walk, and I'll be cutting it down like that, and you'll see the figure moving through all this strange and flowing, colorful pattern.